Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Finance podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is the co-founder and CEO of Brigit, Zuben Mathews. Zuben, how's it going?
It's going fabulously well, Jared. Thanks for spending your time here with us. I believe you were in New York last week, so hopefully our city treated you well.
It was. I told you I probably should have expanded my horizons and went to some only New York places, but instead I ended up hitting up some places I could have eaten at anywhere. It's how it goes, right? With meetings and everything, sometimes you just grab the quick option.
Well, the next time you're here, give us a shout.
Love it. Well, really excited to chat here today. First off, I need to give a shout out to the decal behind you. That looks sweet. Is it like a giant sticker, or is that?
It is. Thank you for noticing. It is a
Oh,
sticker
that is
that goes
awesome.
up and down, and it was our amazing office manager who decided to put that over there. So, there's a
That is.
lot of that in the office, and you can't see my swag, but I am
You have
actually
the
always.
swag too. I love it.
There you go.
Man, that really pops on the black. It's black, right?
It is indeed black. Here, I'll adjust that for yourself and the viewers. I'm sure they're super excited to see my swag. Kidding.
Hey, people want to see the swag. They get excited about it.
I'll tell you what. Sorry to digress, but I was actually having dinner a couple of nights ago just with me and my dog, and someone saw my Brigit hat, and they were like, "Hey, we use that," and it made me super excited. I mean, there are a few things in our company, I'm sure we'll talk about, that gets people really riled up, including founders, and having someone who comes up and says, "I use your product," and I was hoping they liked it and they loved it. So it's always good to hear that. That was just 2 days ago.
I love those type of stories. You know what other stories I like? This is actually going to be my first question. I'll work it into the first question. Is when someone comes up to you and looks at that sweatshirt and says, "Ooh, what does Brigit do?" What do you tell them?
Well, we're the most downloaded financial health app in the United States. What that basically means is we have a suite of products that are all designed towards helping reduce individuals' financial stress. Specifically, we have budgeting tools, financial content, ability to give you tailored, personalized advice, but also, as importantly, the ability to build your credit score through saving, but also give you paycheck advances so you have some more income smoothing. That entire package is what we do. And some of the things that I was pretty proud of that we finished the last year with was we helped save our users, since we started the company about 6 years ago, over $1 billion in fees. So that kind of starts to get pretty exciting. And about 94% of our users feel less stressed because they're using our product. That to us is one of the things that keep us excited. And the occasional person saying, "Hey, I use your product. We love it."
So whenever we hear anything in the financial space, one of the first things we think about is security, because now our information is out there. So I have to ask you, in terms of security, how top of mind is that when you were initially putting together the platform, like the app? What was really one of the core things around security you wanted to make sure you were hitting?
Sure. And again, I don't want to keep bringing this back to you, but you've been in the health space, and there are lots of parallels that we touched base even before this in terms of health and financials. So there's two things you need to be very, very, more than two things, but let's start with this. If you're dealing with people's money, which is a fundamental level of stress, and their livelihoods, that has to be the first cause of concern. So whatever we've gone and done from day one was making sure that we've been fundamentally as secure as possible. I mean, at the end of the day, thanks to third-party technology and the tech that we built in-house, we tend to have what you would call bank-level security across our entire infrastructure. I'm going to knock on wood that nothing happens, but we've obviously not been breached so far, and no plans of ever getting breached. But that's where we fundamentally stand. The other thing and balancing that with user experience is always important. But hey, you're dealing with people's money. It is the single most top of mind thing for our company.
Love hearing that. And you're right. There are, I'm glad you mentioned the healthcare piece, because it's just the healthcare and fintech are often two areas that often get coupled together, just for a number of reasons, right? But payment issues within healthcare and financial wellness within the healthcare space with medical bills and things like that are always top of mind with people. But then also to the question I asked you before around security, I feel like healthcare and finance are the two industries that hear the most about, how secure is this platform, more than maybe any other space. So that's why I had to ask. I do want to make sure I'm asking you too, Um, your company's cash flow technology, how did you end up differentiating yourself in this market early on? And then, how do you see that continuing to go on?
Sure. I mean, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, so there's two things we care about, right? I mean, from a business perspective, one is making sure we have the biggest impact to our users' financial lives. And I pointed out the $1 billion number that we've helped save. That is fundamental. Everything we do is again leveraging our cash flow information, which looks at people's income, the volatility of income, historical spending pattern, and draws a holistic view in real time of that individual. And the reasons why we've been fortunately successful in this, because we've done this obviously at scale and profitably, may I add, is because the entire team that we got on board now 7 years ago, including my co-founder, had already worked on cash flow information outside of the United States, simply because there weren't that many use cases in the United States at that point in time. And he brought over a couple of people from his team who used to work at Palantir. So we kind of already had a head start. Plus, we had some friends in the industry who gave us 1 billion. This number keeps coming up. Actually, this was 2 billion cash flow data points. So that was the advantage that we had before we even started, saying, hey, the core thesis is FICO is absolutely wonderful 30 years ago, in all due respect, for certain types of individuals. We were focused on the 75% of our country, 75% of our country that lives paycheck to paycheck, and their financials change in real time. FICO is just not very good for that segment of the population to bridge the gap into smooth their incomes. So that is how we started. And every day, every loss we take, every additional user we get, we learn from their patterns. So we've actually gone and done about 50 models in the course of even just the last 5 years. But that's the ability to be able to test quickly, learn quickly, and adapt quickly is the reason why we have been doing this at scale. So we've done over $3 billion of originations, 25, 30 million of advances. Again, have done that profitably for the segment of the population that FICO historically would call the riskiest, but we don't believe they are.
Let's talk about the biggest misconception around FICO. Like, what is something you've been in the space for a while? What is one of the biggest misconceptions that it doesn't have to be about FICO, but just when it comes to financial wellness, what's one of the biggest misconceptions that people often have?
I'm not going to call out any VCs because our VCs are fabulous. But when we went to raise money in 2018, that was the first time, or end of 2017, as a seed round. Again, fintech was still reasonably nascent. Cash flow was almost non-existent in terms of cash flow analytics. And we went and said, hey, our country at that point was less than 75%. Unfortunately, the number of people living paycheck to paycheck continues to increase in the wealthiest country in the world, may I add, which is gut-wrenching to me. But their biggest point was, hey, why don't they just use money in a different account and transfer their money into the account, and they wouldn't have this problem? And I was like, you guys, you must be a rich person to say this. And the other pushback I got, it really pissed me off, pardon my French, is the fact that, hey, maybe people are just lazy, or they should just not go to Starbucks that morning. If someone is fundamentally hardworking, which most of us are, not all of us, but most, and the biggest problem that exists is the fact that you get paid in 2 weeks and your expenses, and I've gone through this as a college student here, your expenses are today, you can be fundamentally responsible in living between your means, but you got a timing mismatch. And who am I, or you, Mr. Fancy Rich VC, to tell that hard-working person that they shouldn't go enjoy that one Starbucks that might be one of the few things that gives them joy. And the last thing I want to hear from someone is telling me or our users or the people in America that they're freaking lazy. It's not true.
Yeah, you know who's also guilty of that? A lot of these influencers out there that put out these, the clickbaity YouTube videos. Like, if I hate the ones that they add up what a Starbucks coffee is and say, if you went 20 times to Starbucks this month, here's how much you would save. It's like obvious math, right?
Yeah.
And I do see that we say that far too often of, having that occasional Starbucks or whatever your thing is that you like, right? Going out to lunch, We need to get away from just, to your point, right? Calling people lazy and saying, just don't go get that. You can't do it.
It's the problem is fundamentally bigger than just that, right? And maybe that is that individuals, and I don't want to necessarily call out Starbucks, but in this example, that individual's relief or happiness. It's just, if that person is fundamentally, and this is what I'm trying to get across, is fundamentally not living within their means, again, someone might want to guide them to not doing that. But if you're living between your means, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, it's much deeper than that. You're right. I want to make sure that I'm allowed to say this, but you've built this up quite a bit. You've hit 100 million revenue milestone. If I can't say that, please let me know.
No. We've said this out.
Okay.
We're more proud of the billion, but the 100 is nice. Both me and my co-founder wanted to build an impactful business, but at the same time an enduring business. So we feel good about that. Thank you for bringing that up.
So, to scale a business to that size, what were some of the key strategies that you deployed early on? And I guess
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go
no,
ahead.
you're good. You go from there.
It's pretty simple. Solve a big problem that matters. Big doesn't necessarily have to mean the market size. Solve a deep problem, I should say, that matters to people. And if it matters to one person, it's probably going to matter to a large segment of the population as well. So that is the first thing. Make sure you provide value. So solve the deepest pain points that you can solve. Make sure it's transparent, fair, and providing value. And the last thing, make it simple and easy for someone to use. Those are the tenets of our company since day one. And when you, again, sorry to say this number, when you got 3/4 of the wealthiest population in the world living paycheck to paycheck, so very different between average and medians. If you try to help people get money between paychecks so they don't have to stress about borrowing money from their friends, worse, going to payday loans, and a lot of people do that. And the reason why I helped design this business with my co-founder was avoid those overdraft fees. When I came here 20 years ago, I'm starting to date myself, as an immigrant who had a full tuition scholarship from the University of Chicago to study economics. My single mother was sending me money, but I still managed to have the same gap that exists today, which is what I pointed out. I was living responsibly and had 2 part-time jobs, but my expenses and my rent, first of the month, I was getting paid sporadically, mostly towards the end of the month, or the first month only once a month. That mismatch between the timing is something I ended up spending $1,000 my first year in overdraft fees. I can tell you right now, I still remember what the vending machine downstairs in my dorm looked like, because I would try to save money and eat Snickers for dinner. It is freaking mind-boggling that 20 years later, in the United States, that fundamental problem still exists. And we are one of the companies here who are looking at a holistic view of not just providing money when needed, but getting you to a point where you can budget, where we can send you smart recommendation. I actually got one last week, which is kind of cool, where the system using cashflow saw that my Con Edison bill in New York was quite a bit higher than my previous month. And it sent me a piece of content saying, these are the 5 things you can do to reduce your bill. I thought that was kind of cool. And also being able to build your credit score as you save. Obviously, as you build your credit score, you can save in other forms of loans, but also reduce your insurance bills. That is the kind of power that cashflow does. And that is the way we at Brigit are using it to impact our 1 million+ customers.
I love it. I love how passionate you are about this too, which you have to be, right? Like, to build something this impactful, you have to be passionate.
I mean, I just finished lunch with, I'll tell you another reason we're passionate. If we weren't making an impact, we could all do other jobs and make a little bit of money. I'm sure we could all fortunately, pretty sure all our team can do that. Even I might be able to do that. You combine that with the fact that you actually impact people's lives. And I was just finishing lunch with a set of younger talent in our company. And I'm just sitting there and hearing these ideas. And it just was like invigorating to hear, all right, so I'm going to get hit by a truck tomorrow. Cool. I mean, not cool. I think some people might be disappointed. But But you know what? The company's in great hands. Not to mention my co-founder is just a freaking genius.
I love it. It's this is part of the reason why I do video, by the way, is to see people's eyes light up and get excited about what they're building. This question I hope gets you excited. I've been starting to ask it a lot lately. What's something you can laugh about now, but in the early days probably wanted to make you cry?
Oh, this is a long list.
This is what everyone says. It's like just one? That's tough.
It's a long. Yeah, I mean, like, the joys of being a founder is that you have highs and lows literally in the same week, or forget week, days. So one of the hardest things that I had to do was try to find my co-founder, and it took me almost a year to find someone with cash flow experience. Again, going back to the fact that it was so nascent and you had to find the right person. That is something that still gives me PTSD. Well, fortunately, it doesn't give me PTSD because the person I got is brilliant, but it took so much time. But you mentioned healthcare again, and you use the phrase payments. Our first payments provider took such a long time. We kept knocking on people's doors. Again, 2017, early 2018, very early days. We didn't really exist as a company. You go to JP Morgan or go to a bank and say, hey, we're going to send and receive money into people's accounts. They start to ask a lot of questions and they take a lot of time. But I remember like one day we were in a parking lot, just finished a VC meeting, and I got a call from Silicon Valley Bank at the time saying, we're going to turn you on payments in the next 3 days. And I'm like, how? They received a call from somebody, one of our investors who vouched for us. That's all it took. But the 25,000 calls that it took me and different vendors to call to get that's the kind of stuff. Today you get it like this. Infrastructure has advanced.
Let's talk a little bit as we wrap up here. What you see, let's call it the next 5 to 10 years in the fintech space. Obviously, it's been evolving for a while now, but where do you see your company? So first, where do you see fintech evolving over the next couple of years, and where do you see Brigit's place in that evolution?
So I think the good news from the overall infrastructure standpoint is that there are fewer companies that are higher quality companies. And that's what I'm saying, the good news, right? We all want more companies to have more impact. But the reality is when you start up a company and you don't have a proper business model or the ability to truly influence and impact people's lives, the industry loses because less people want to invest. There's more bad news, so on and so forth. So there are much more higher quality companies really focused on the bigger 5-10 year goal of the largest impact they can have, including financially. Where Brigit sits in today is it's actually quite an interesting point. There's some key landmarks that we've hit. We've started to repeat it. It's the 100 million in revenue, profitability. We've been profitable for a while. It gives you a sense that the core tech that we've built is really effective. I'm going to give 2 data points for this, and I think it's important. One is that we are less than 100 people doing well over 100 million in revenue, in fact, 150 plus million in ARR. Those are the kind of data points that should give people saying, hey, this technology built by this company is real, right? We have the lowest loss rates in the industry of about 2% with twice the approval rates. This is the reason why we got into this business, to try to make sure we can impact people's lives, have proper financial inclusion. And yes, in order to do that, we need to build a sustainable, enduring company. That is where we are. We are at the precipice of truly pushing. Like we had about 90% growth last year, but we want to 3x, 4x, 5x our business in the next 3 years because we've hit all these landmarks, I would say, and there is proof points. So we're going to fundamentally push our mission of financial inclusion by creating more products that will help people reduce their financial stress and have more money in their accounts. How we do that is a little bit more proprietary, but that is the core thesis that this company has been built, all leveraging our cash flow technology.
Terrific. Zuben, I'm so excited for you and the team. And again, I want to thank you for all that you're doing and the impact that you've had so far and will continue to have. Look forward to future conversations and wishing you the best of luck.
No, I appreciate it. And please give me a shout. I mean it. Let's at least have a drink. Take you out for lunch if you have time the next time you're in our city.
Love it. We'll do. I'll take you up on that.
Thanks again for the time. Appreciate it, bud.
Thank you.